crazy announcements on Daily Dev. There is a giveaway going on. You can check the Daily Dev account for this. And yes, so hi everyone. So Lee, your lighting looks great. It's great to make this sort of interviews with someone who is also used to camera. And yes, so Lee, let's get started. And yes, please introduce yourself and then we can start.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here in chat. I'm Lee. I'm the VP of Developer Experience at Vercel, where I lead and grow and just try to educate our community of developers. And what a perfect place to chat more about DevRel and communities and some of the work I'm doing and kind of how I got into it. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk more.
Absolutely. But before we start, let me say that one of the great advantages of working in DevRel is swag. So as you can see, I have the Vercel swag. So this is one of the great pros
awesome.
of doing this. And I think it was you that sent me the box, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I'm glad you're repping the swag today.
Nice, perfect. Okay, nice. So Lee, please let me know. Like I make this serious because I also want to understand the story of us. For example, to understand if you have always been a developer, if you switched career. So you can start from wherever you want, from your childhood when you was a toddler. You can decide when you want to start and understand like how did you basically became a developer. Thank you.
Yeah, I decided to become a developer when I went to college or university. I was between doing development, or software engineering was technically my major, development or graphic design or music. I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, to be honest. And then ultimately I picked up doing software engineering. So I went into university with having zero programming experience. I'd always liked computers. I liked to do videos and be involved in like building my own PCs and stuff too, but I hadn't done programming specifically. So I went into it pretty fresh, and I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely hard at first for me to get up to speed with the level that everyone else was at. Most people I was in my classes had already learned how to do at least the basics of programming. Some of them had been programming for years, and I was coming in knowing nothing, right? So I had to learn a lot very quickly in my time in university. But once we got into web development, once we got into HTML, JavaScript, CSS, I was like, okay, it's all starting to click now. This is the type of stuff that I'm really interested in. I want to double down and spend more time working on this stuff on the front end. And that's really what kind of kicked off my career as a front end developer. For the past 10 years, I've been doing product development in basically front end development. So helping companies build, one company I did internal tools, and I helped kind of build tooling that the other developers at the company use. And another company I worked on an e-commerce product and platform to help folks buy groceries online. So getting to lead that project and work with an amazing team was super incredible and a great part of my career. And then throughout this whole process on the side, once I started learning React in 2015, shortly after that, I started to create content. I started to write blog posts, make videos, and eventually do some courses on Next.js that I was doing just because I wanted to on the side. And then it eventually led into this point where I kind of stumbled onto Next.js pretty early. I helped my last company move over to Next.js. At the time, the community was just getting started. So I had been putting out a lot of content and helping people learn in the community. And it was actually a really great fit then for me to join the team at Vercel and continue doing that more. So that was ultimately what led to the beginning of my role at Vercel. So I guess that's a quick history of my background.
Yeah, this is very interesting. First of all, we are similar background. I also always liked the computer, but I was not like a software engineer because for me, coding, I always say that coding was something a bit boring. I came from the sports world, maybe even from the music. So maybe if we compare music and coding, at least for the beginner, the choice is a no-brainer, basically. But yes, of course, it depends on your path. And I started the DevRel series a couple of months ago, and I explain exactly this. Like, if you want to become a DevRel, you should start from creating content. One of the ideas, this also has been my path. For example, my first DevRel role, it was for a company that worked for with the AWS and Docker, and I was like, just became a Docker captain. I was creating Docker content. So many of my friends, they became DevRels by creating content. So basically, they attract the company by creating content, courses and something like that, and then they start, because in that case you're halfway done, because they hire you. Basically, I don't know, you're feeling that you're doing almost the same stuff, but you're paid for that. So I don't know if you had this feeling. Did you have this feeling when you got hired?
Yeah, I think the best thing you can possibly do for DevRel is hire people who are already part of your community. So in the case of Vercel, and I would recommend this to other companies as well too, is we had an open source product, which is Next.js. We were investing in supporting all of these different frameworks on the web. It makes sense to find somebody who's advocating for and educating people in that community to then be the force multiplier of taking that to more and more people. So when I joined Vercel, really at that time, the CEO and then the team behind the actual product, Next.js, were the ones kind of ad hoc doing the DevRel. Like, there was a little bit of marketing, of course, but it wasn't really, the roots had been laid for how we wanted to expand the community, and they had done a good job of kind of starting that out and doing some events and thinking about how to be very mindful with open source. But there was a really big opportunity to take that even further, with people spending, their entire time thinking just about that. So when I started, my goal was not only to make great content and educate the community myself, it was also to build a team of people who can do this together and just help developers how to make really great websites at the end of the day. So for a while, I was just doing it myself. And then a few years ago, then I started to build a team as well too of folks who are also developers, designers, educators, people who want to share how they're building with React and Next.js and all these front-end frameworks on the web, and show how you can make that really easy when you use a platform like Vercel.
Amazing. Yes, I discovered the Vercel, let's say, not I think after I joined Twitter. I think it was not so early. I think it was 2020, but since I joined, I used this on a regular basis, of course. Big fan, of course. And yes, so Lee, now I think I want to drop you a kind of hard question, which is the classic question that I ask to basically everyone who is more involved in this role, which is like, what is DevRel for you? How would you define DevRel from your perspective?
For me, DevRel is about community. It's about growing and educating a community of developers. And that's going to manifest itself into a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, the success and the sentiment of the community is ultimately what matters. If your community is ultimately your extended advocates, right? You have the people on your team who are advocating for what you're doing, but ideally you want your community to also shout about your product and shout about your tools and be really excited about the stuff that you're releasing. I think the most exciting and invigorating thing is when you release something and there's this just amazing, incredible feedback from the community because you launched the thing that they've been asking for. This was the thing that they wanted so much. You listened to their feedback, you took it to the team, you built the thing, and you built it in a really delightful way. And then you get to go back to the community and say, we listened, and here's this thing that you really wanted. And I think the important piece there is you as a DevRel, as a member, have to be a part of that community too. It's not like you're just at the company extracting value from everybody else and then you give it back. No, like you're a part of the community just like all the other individuals, and you have to share the same likes and dislikes that they have. That's why a while ago I tweeted this thing. It's like a really good sign of a great developer advocate is that, one, they can give a 5-minute unprompted, unscripted demo of their product. I think there was 3, but the second one that I wanted to talk about was that they can list the pros and the cons for the product. There's something about a developer advocate being somebody that's for the community and in the community as a representative at the company means also acknowledging and understanding the parts that aren't good. Like I can tell you about all the things I love about Next.js. I can also tell you about the things that I know that the community is frustrated with, or they're having a hard time with, or the things that are on our roadmap that we're trying to fix and improve and make better. And it's important to have both of those things because you don't want to sound like, and you don't want to be a marketing person at a company. You're not that. You're a part of the community trying to help and grow and bring more people into that community. And that's going to manifest itself through content and through conferences and through events and through meetups and through a lot of different stuff. Ultimately, playing a role as, hey, our community has this feedback. Let's bundle that up, take it to the rest of the team, improve on it, maybe make some content, maybe make some product improvements, and then come back to them with the good news. So that's for me, DevRel in a nutshell.
I love this definition, and I can say, as I said, that I've been working in sports. I've been a volleyball coach for about 20 years. So understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of your team makes you the best possible coach. Because if you only see the pros, it seems that something is missing, because you should understand. Because I don't know, one day someone will point out that. But if you know the weakness, you can work on this. You can say, yes, you are right, but. Otherwise, you just become basically speechless and say, "Oh my God, my product is not it's flawless. It has some flaws." But of course, so I love this, and also yes, having this authentic feedback. I think companies should hire a developer advocate basically to get criticized. So they should be paid to criticize the companies when you see something which is not clear. So.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance too, because if I am only ever giving negative feedback to the engineering and product and design teams, then that's going to be not a great relationship. They're not going to want to listen to what me or my teams have to say. So it's important to not only bring back the pain points and aggregate the pain points, but also share the wins of the community as well too. This customer went live and had an amazing launch on Vercel. This customer is running Next.js successfully and really enjoys this feature or that feature, and sharing the success of the community as well with the teams, because that's very empowering for them as well when they're trying to build improvements to the product.
Yes, absolutely. It's like a relationship. If you are arguing 24/7, there is something wrong. If sometimes you argue, it's fine. It's fine. It seems. I think it's also a good sign, because, for example, it happens to me. So if it happens not on a daily basis, it seems it means that you have some sort of communication. You have a sort of. It's like when you say to one of your friends, like, I don't know, you're messing up. It's like a honest feedback or about something. So yes, absolutely.
The important thing there too is to separate product feedback from feedback towards an individual. And I think this is all in the delivery of the message. And I think what really successful DevRel individuals can do is deliver this feedback that often gets expressed through harsh terms. It might come out as customer on Twitter says, Next.js is terrible. This is the worst framework. I don't want to ever use this again. Trying to put a layer of translation sometimes between that and the team so that they're not having to absorb that can also be a very powerful skill. I will give the caveat that sometimes you do need to give them the raw feedback when it's a particularly painful thing. Like, hey, we all need to understand and embrace that this thing needs some work and the community has pain with it. But there's other times too where there's consistent themes across multiple different areas you want to kind of combine into one feedback stream.
Yes, absolutely. And I think but one of the good things of software is that it's never done. It's our goal is not just to make a paint. It's we can always say maybe this part maybe it has to change a bit, or maybe for example, on the UI I have all the possible feedbacks. I'm sure that someone will love the Vercel UI, someone hate it because it's very minimalistic. So I don't know. It depends on the taste. in my case, I like it. But for example, sometimes on daily dev, we have this like I don't know, like someone says like fire all your design, or someone says like this is the best design I ever saw, or I'm using this app just for the design. So we have like very different feedback, but it's like personal taste.
The key thing there for me is that you're never gonna please everyone, so you have to balance the feedback with your own taste as well too. And I think sometimes this gets a little muddy or confusing when it comes to like API design or framework design, because everyone has an opinion on how you consume this component, or what this abstraction looks like, or what the API name is, or how you compose pieces together. And ultimately, you have to take that feedback, but also have a vision and a design taste for how you think is the right way to build the framework or build the product. And staying true to that while still accepting the feedback is a balance. But I think great authors of tools, great authors of libraries, great authors of frameworks do this really well. They ingest the feedback. They don't take action on it right away, but they really deeply think about how they take that to design a better product for the long term.
Nice. Thank you so much, Lee. Let me take 1 second of break. I want to just take a sip if I can. By the way, you can drop the questions because we have some time.
It's product placement. Nice.
I always say that giving me some t-shirt mug is the best ROI that you can have. Anyway, yes. So Lee, let's talk. Your definition of DevRel, which is very focused on the community aspect, it's interesting because not all the DevRel, let's say, are laser focused on communities. We can have DevRels working on documentation, or very focused on just creating videos. So basically, there are like three main parts of the DevRel. So you're very, let's say, focused on the communities part. So let's go on the part of the communities. And I started a community, I think it was December 2020. And I can say that building a community from scratch, it's very, very hard. Even if you have a social media presence, I was very confident at the beginning, saying, okay, I have 50,000 followers, I'll have many people join a community, but it's not like that. So building a community, it's very, very tough. Convincing people that spending time inside, I don't know, a Discord server, inside a Slack channel, instead of just scrolling on social media is not very easy, right? So what do you have to say?
The way I think about it, and this is why the larger organization for my teams is developer experience, is that there's 4 pillars. There's education, documentation, community, and templates. And DevRel works across a few of those. You know, they create content. That's really the education piece. They're involved in the community. They create templates to help people get started and succeed with our tools. And they might also help with documentation as well too. But we also have folks who all they do is think about documentation. And I think that's also important because documentation needs to be treated like a product and needs to be maintained like a product. It can't be just an afterthought. And it's something that takes a lot of continuous, always-on investment when you're consistently releasing new products or updating products or tweaking things. So it's kind of a mix of all of those, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. For example, I started in daily dev writing the document. We had no documentation. And now we at least we have a page of documentation. I mean, we had some info, but I think having a place. And I think it's especially I think documentation can be great. For example, especially, I don't know, if you are not very used, for example, to public speaking or content creation or doing live streams, it's a way to get into DevRel. Sometimes I get this question, can I get into DevRel without exposing myself? So short answer, probably not. It depends because it's like a front-end, a frontman role. But maybe you can start in this way, and then probably you can move. I think the community part is the one more, let's say, in the front, with basically you just put your face in front, and then you get all the good and bad stuff.
I feel like if you want to get involved in the space, but you don't want to, or you don't yet want to be involved in something that's public facing, documentation is probably the best place to start, because all the other aspects of developer experience or developer relations do involve some kind of community engagement or public facing aspects that you can ease your way into. You can learn and grow and slowly get better at those things, but it is a requirement to do the role successfully. It's hard to build a community of people that want to follow you if you're not socializing with them, building those connections and building those relationships. But that's not to say that everyone has to do that. I think that there's a lot of folks who they still care deeply about the developer experience of using a tool or a product, and maybe they just want to think about the documentation or think about building specific templates, for example. Maybe those people don't need to be public facing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that like starting from the documentation can help you also to get maybe the necessary confidence to then come out. Because once by working on the documentation, you get more confidence because you understand all the caveats, all the things of the product. So maybe you start being an expert, as we should be, in the product.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important to be able to talk the talk, as they say. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. So when someone asks you, hey, how does this thing work? It's important to be able to speak towards the specifics. Yeah. Hey, everyone in the chat. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us.
Yes, absolutely. Just a kind reminder that if you want to ask something, you can just drop the question in the chat. Nice. So, about communities. How can someone be an active member in a community? I get this question like many times. I have my own perspective, but maybe from your perspective, like how can you be an active member from the Vercel community or any developers community, or say communities in general?
I think the rule of thumb for me is that you give more than you take. And what I mean by that is if you're only going to a community to say, hey, can anyone help me with this thing? Can anyone build this thing for me? I'm struggling with this thing. You're making all these asks for people. And until you've built that relationship with people, they're maybe going to be less inclined to just take time out of their day to help you out with all this stuff. On the inverse, there will be times where you want to ask for help. So to augment that or to offset that, you want to give back to the community. You want to give them examples. You want to help answer questions for people. You want to be somebody who understands the products and can help teach and help others succeed with what you're doing. So if you have a good balance of let's say 5-to-1, you want to do 5 times as much giving than you do taking. And I think this is important not only for individuals in the community, it's also important for the folks managing the community. For example, if every day I was on Twitter or Hacker News or on any place, GitHub, any place our community's at, and I was saying, hey, please take this survey so that we can learn more about how you're doing this thing. Oh, please give us this and please give us that. And also while you're here, can you please give us feedback on this thing? If that's the only thing I'm doing, people are going to feel a little overwhelmed. That's a lot, right? Where I'm asking you to give me some of your time to complete a task. What is better and what works a little bit better is saying, here's this video I made to help you learn how to use our product. Here's this blog post that goes in depth on how things work. Here's free swag. Here's an event where you can get together and meet people in the community. Here's all these things. And then maybe 1 out of every 10 times I say, hey, what's not going great? I would love to hear how things are working. And please, if you're willing to take time out of your day to give us that feedback, we'd greatly appreciate it. Now, how do you do that in a way that people want to continue to give us feedback? And there's this culture of feedback, is that you truly listen and you take action on that feedback. And then you tell them that you've solved their problem. If you don't ever do that, then the feedback doesn't really matter, right? If somebody says, man, Next.js it just really doesn't work well when I use this specific feature. Vercel just really doesn't work well when I want to do this specific thing in the product, and they feel like they're shouting into a void, they're going to be less likely to give more feedback in the future. Versus if folks say, man, I really wish that on a page, some parts of my data could be static, some parts of my data could render from the server. I didn't have to pick, all or nothing for my entire page. Well, it turns out we listened to them and we made that feature of the new Next.js app router. And now we go tell them, hey, thank you for this feedback. That's why we built this new feature. Now you're building customer love, you're building community trust. They're more willing to give that feedback in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, about the rule of 5 to 1, this would make not only the developers community, but the whole world a better place to stay.
So true.
And also sometimes I also say like it's not the best way to introduce yourself like Francesco, nice to meet you. Do you have $5 for me? So this is like one of the worst ways to introduce yourself, because maybe you're just asking a little favor, but you usually don't ask favors to people who are not like your friends, dear old friends. So it's the same approach. And yes, and usually sometimes in the communities they have maybe someone is joining to get the support. So if you have a Discord server with a specific rules to get support, that's fine. Also, please read all the rules. Don't just ask like, what should I do? but yes.
Yeah.
So
maybe to that point, the one thing I will also give the caveat is it's not necessarily a bad thing to go into a community and ask for support. That's not what I want folks to take away from that message. What I want to make sure they take away is that just to be cognizant that when you're asking people to solve a problem for you, make it easy for them to actually solve the problem. So for example, if you post in, and this goes for any developer community, if you post in a screenshot of your error without much context, without the code, without the steps that you've used to try to debug it yourself, it's going to be a lot harder for anyone in the community to drop in and really give you feedback and help you solve the problem. So not only are you helping yourself with the debugging process, you're also helping the community make it easier for you to answer that question.
Yes, absolutely. So please try to avoid the screenshots as much as possible. Nice. Thank you so much, Lee. I'm really enjoying this very open conversation. It's been, as I say, tough week. Finally, it's Friday. After this, I'll probably I want to relax.
Time for a vacation.
Yes, absolutely. Like a 2-3 months vacation. Yes. Nice. So let's try to connect these two concepts, and let's go into like the the real main topic. So we have communities, we have DevRel. How do we put them like in relation, pun word intended, like, so relation between DevRel and communities? How do they work together? You that have this great experience in this, you're probably one of the best people I can ask this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the people in the chat saying they enjoy Vercel or that we're doing good things for the community. So thank you. And thanks for being part of the community. I think the connection between DevRel and the community is that I say that I'm a front-end developer. That's what I identify as. And before I worked at Vercel, I was a fan of Next.js, and I will continue to be a fan of Next.js. It's technology that I genuinely really like, and I think has made an impact on me as an individual, as me as a developer. It's made my life easier for building applications, and I want to help other people also learn how to use these modern frameworks, make it really easy for them to get sites online. So the connection for me is it's hard to fake authenticity. It's hard to fake being genuinely excited about something. And to me, that's a big difference between developer marketing and developer community and developer relations. Because for the folks on my team, they're genuinely excited about the stuff that they're talking about. They enjoy building with the tech. They enjoy being part of the community and helping other people succeed. They're not doing it just necessarily because that was where their specific task was assigned to. They get enjoyment out of helping people learn. And that like intrinsic motivation of helping people learn, I think, is what makes really good developer advocates or people in developer relations, because It's coming from a mutually beneficial interest. From the advocate, they are succeeding when they're getting satisfaction from helping people learn. From the individual in the community, they're succeeding because they're building a better product or they're building a better application because of the tools that they're enabled to use. So I think that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that great developer relations folks have to really obsess about the community, because without the community, if you strip away the community, what do you really have? In a lot of ways, the community is the thing that sticks with you many, many years after the product, or many, many years after the feature launch, even to the next company. I mean, in some ways, when I talk to the advocates on my team, you not only have the community of the product or the company that you're advocating for, you also have your own personal community that are people who gravitate to you, the individual, because they like what you do. There are people who, there's people who follow you, there's people who follow me that tune in because they like how we present things to the world, how we talk about things, how we work through problems. And as a side benefit, as a side effect of that, maybe they're going to be more likely to check out daily.dev. Maybe they're going to be more likely to check out Vercel. And that's a great thing. And it's okay to have those two things be separated. To go to your, since you like sports, to go to your sports analogy, sometimes I think about this as developer advocates being like free agents, or folks in a professional sports league. You have these talented athletes, or you have these talented advocates who do a really, really good job at what they do. They're experts, or they're moving up through the ranks to become an expert in their field. And teams or companies will pay to have these people be on their team because, one, they perform well and they can help advocate for the thing, or two, because they individually have their own set of skills. So for example, I don't know, let's say football or soccer, Messi's Messi, right? He's the GOAT, right? It doesn't really matter what team he's on, he's the GOAT. And it's the same thing in American football. It's the same thing in any other sport. You have these people who transcend the specific team or country or wherever they're affiliated, and people follow them for them. And I think there are some similarities with this generation of people who are creators, these generation of people who have their own individual communities that transcend the companies they work for as well, too. And thank you, Max.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because while you were talking, I was thinking exactly about this analogy. So now maybe we should decide who is the Cristiano Ronaldo of DevRel. Maybe I'll make a tweet one day. Maybe Kelsey Tower. I don't know.
Yes,
I had him on this show a couple of weeks ago, and yes, so,
I would say that Kelsey is somebody in. He spent a lot of time doing DevRel. He's somebody that I have a ton of respect for and have looked up to as somebody as a guiding model for how to do DevRel extremely well. And it's nice for me too to see him as somebody who moved from DevRel as well back to engineering as well too, because I think it really underlines this key point of like, yes, we're advocates. Yes, we're people who care about the community, but at our core, we're people who really understand the engineering and care about the engineering and have lived that life as well too. And I think that's a super important piece of it.
Yes, absolutely. So Graham, we worked together. So it's a former colleague, and he's asking, like, do you think that the main goal of community is to create further advocates, customer support, DX, or something else? So what do you think is the main goal of the communities?
Community is a very long-term game because the investment does not usually pay off immediately. It pays off in the time scale of years instead of days or weeks. The main goal for me is to build a momentum or a force of people who really care about your product long into the future, and they bring other people along for the journey. So to the question Graham asked, I think it kind of is to create further advocates, but it's, and it maybe reframed in a different way. It's to create people who love your product and are excited to be a part of the community that advocates for that product. Now, when people really love the product, they will also help other people succeed with the product. And this isn't something that's, this isn't unique to developers or unique to developer tools. It's the same thing for even large consumer brands as well, too. There are people who really like a product from Apple, or they really like a product from Gucci or like some fashion brand, right? And they love it so much that they continue to purchase products there, tell their friends about them, represent them, wear them, help other people succeed if they're wanting to buy that product or if they're in that community. That's the hallmark of creating a brand and a community that people want to come back to.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lee. But let's say that, do you agree with me that, let's say, generally speaking, developers are kind of skeptic. They are not usually just to say yes to everything. At least for me, is the opposite. Like, before getting trust into something, I want to double check, triple check. I remember me, like even if, for example, for Vercel, like the first time that I was checking, say, are they doing something strange? I want to double check. So I checked, because this is how usually I behave. But then once I'm done, you can see now I have the swag, all the stuff. So do you think this is like even harder in the developers community?
Yeah, I think a lot of developers are skeptical of a lot of tools that they pick up and use for good reason. I think there's been a repeated pattern in history that makes developers skeptical of tools, and the speed at which the industry moves also creates this feeling of trying to do due diligence on a thing before I spend all of this time researching or adopting or telling other people about this thing, because at the pace and speed at which front-end dev, back-end dev, web development, all these different areas move, you don't want to necessarily get burnt moving to a new tool or a new platform only for it to be a bad decision and have you as the decision maker kind of be the person who is responsible for doing that thing. So because of that, a lot of people do a lot of due diligence and make sure that they've covered the cases of, is this product going to actually meet my needs? Is this community a place that I want to invest in? And I think community is one of the really big things that can set products apart in that sense. If I'm evaluating two different tools, two products, one of them doesn't seem to be releasing new updates very often. There's not a lot of people talking about it. It seems like the cadence of updates is pretty slow. If I'm evaluating that versus a product with a thriving community that frequently releases new changes or updates, that talks to the community about those updates, that shares and celebrates success with its community members and highlights people in the community doing good things. If I'm comparing those two without even looking at what the product is, for me personally, I'm probably going to pick the one with the better community. I'm going to be I'm going to feel more comforted that I'm going to be able to get my questions answered, that they're going to fix problems that I have, that they're going to be willing to make changes based on my feedback, versus just throwing feedback over the fence and just hoping that maybe they'll actually fix the thing. That's not really a place you want to be in when you're investing in, especially open source. When you're picking an open source tool that your company might depend on, you want to make sure that they're willing and adaptable to accept feedback or give you escape hatches to work around the things.
Yes, I absolutely agree. This is also like when people ask me, like, I don't know, which one of these tools, like, would you recommend, or which kind of, I don't know, roadmap you suggesting, I don't know, to learn blockchain or to learn front-end development, or I always go with the community which is most supportive, because when you need to get started, you don't need the tool that is 0.01% more performant. You need answers to your dumb mistakes. So this is what you usually is. Otherwise, I think things like JavaScript would be dead. JavaScript is based on a community of people who creates things, forums, explanation of your mistakes. This is also, I can mention 10 more tools that I usually are more likely to recommend. And we can make, for example, Vercel another example. Vercel is one of the options, but if you have any issues with Vercel, you are more likely, in my opinion, to find the solutions because many people use it. So it's more like, and sometimes I see this tendency of someone who wants, I don't know, just to look different, but maybe we can be different in another way. But usually, especially when we want to get started with something, I think adopting a technology that has a stronger community is not something that we can't ignore. It's not just about the technology itself. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if it was only about the technology, then you would never have the resources to hire new people who come into a company and already know how to use the tech. They wouldn't be incentivized to do that. This is one of the really interesting things about open source technology and developer tooling is there's a two-sided relationship towards wanting to learn new tech. Let's talk about React, right? With React, companies are incentivized to hire React developers because it is an extremely in-demand skill. There's a lot of people on the market who have React skills, and they're more likely that when they come into the company, they can be productive on day one. So you have that on one side. On the other side, you have an individual who maybe is just getting started learning how to code or in a boot camp. They want to learn the technology that's the most popular, that's going to give them the best chance of landing a job. And when they go find this technology like React, they're invited into a community of people who are helping these newcomers succeed and grow and expand in this community. And this is ultimately what made React extremely successful. Is from the start, the core team of people building the product, the core team of people involved cared really deeply about the community. And that's a 10-year investment that we're just now starting to, really see the effect of this. React has been very popular for a while, but I think, now 10 years later, it's just wild to see the point that it's at now, where so many folks starting their programming journey learn React, or companies are all trying to hire React developers. And React is still not even as popular as jQuery. So there's still so much room to go, really, when you think about it. It just goes to show the effect of the community building at the start and how it was like a long-term investment.
Yes, Ali, I'm really enjoying this. I'm also old enough that I saw like a bit of the evolution, included jQuery. I think that still 70% of the website they use PHP, for example. Nothing wrong with that. But I think that, at least for my experience, going with something mainstream at the beginning and can help you, because I know many people, maybe they stop their tech career because it's too hard. Usually it's very hard to get the first job or the first gig. So once you understand, you can do whatever you want. You can pick, I know some expert people who do the opposite. Like they pick something very niche, when usually the jobs are very well hired, very well paid. But this is not what I would recommend to a beginner. I would start from basics. There are so many things to learn, and maybe many things you don't even know, and maybe when you start, many things don't even exist. so yes, so nice. Lee, thank you so much for joining. Usually I keep like 45 minutes. I'm low of energy today. I'm sorry, but thank you. And but before we close, if you want to, you can still drop one or two questions. I would like to ask you maybe to wrap up this first episode with a final message or whatever you want, and then we can close this episode. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't feel like you've been low on energy. It's been fantastic to have this conversation. So thank you. I know it's been a busy couple past days for you. So thanks for still taking the time to chat and to do this together. It's been a lot of fun. I guess the final message that I'll say is, I'll give my quick 1-minute pitch is, if you like working with React, you might have heard this framework called Next.js. It makes it really easy to build fast websites, includes a lot of things that have a great developer experience that also help you build really amazing experiences on the web. And we are constantly working on improving new features and releasing new fixes. And we have this new thing called the app router that you can learn more about at beta.nextjs.org, that will be stable very soon, that a lot of people are really excited about. And if you want to deploy your Next.js or React or Vue or Svelte or Nuxt or Remix or any web framework in the world, you can go to vercel.com and check that out. And we make it pretty easy to do that as well too. That's my pitch.
Nice, amazing. Thank you so much, Lee. Before we close, it's something, this is not a promotion, but it's something that it's real. So I want to tell you like just something super fast. So I started this community. It's called 4C because it's called like a cool community of content creators. So it's a community of content creators, just 4,000 people there. And when we started, we mean, okay, so we have people. So what should we do now? Let's make the website of the community itself. So, and we decided to go with Next.js and Tailwind, and of course, open source project, and deployed with Vercel. So it also helped the community itself to be alive. Like, okay, now let's do something. Let's create something. So this project is still available. So thank you. We are using this in our community, and also I use this for many other projects. And yes, that's it. So we also close the circle of communities, DevRel and everything else. Thank you so much. You'll be super kind. I really like your point of view. I think that communities are very, very important. Really, someone can underestimate the power of what a community can do. A community can decide to use a product instead of another one, even if that product maybe is a slightly less performant, or maybe it has I don't know, less plugins or less, but it's sometimes we use something because of the people. This is for sure. Or for example, people that they do great talks, great presentations. Maybe we need another episode for this. Can really convince people to at least try something, and then it's all about the adoption, like it has been React, Next.js, and whatever. Lee, this has been an incredible episode. It's time for me to rest, maybe, and then I want to rest for this weekend. Lee, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Looking forward to meet you in person one day.
Yep.
Now it's the goal of my life. At some point we will meet, take a selfie. But if we keep going to conferences, I don't know, at some point we will.
It'll have to happen.
This year I'm coming three times in the US. I've been in Denver, then I'll come in the Render ATL, and then I'll be in Miami in October, maybe. So nice. I don't know. At some point we will meet for sure. Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for the people also here in the chat. And yes, perfect. We are done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.